Of course. Hey. Well, thank you so much. Welcome to the second session of our Connecting Communities Through Story. We're really excited that we can continue to grow our connections, find new friendships, and learn from one another. My name is April Pickerainen, and I am joining today through on the lands of the Hunkaminam speaking people. It's also where the Musqueam people continue their traditions and teachings. And I'm grateful that today we have this beautiful sunshine. And as we went through our day, we could really feel the warmth. And it's just really grateful to have that. Lauren?
Thank you so much. I'm Lauren McLean. Nice to see everyone today. We're so grateful for our second session about relationships because I feel like this is sort of where it starts, is that we're meeting new people and sparking these interests and having these shared experiences. And same as April, we were outside today. The weather was just sort of begging us to do a little more deep exploration into our forest and feeling very connected to this land along the Fraser River, the Stolo Nation, and the Kikite and Quequitlam. So feeling very grateful. A quick recap on our goals and intentions of this series is that we really were aching, April and I were old teaching partners, to reunite and bring other friends together on a transformative journey across the districts, across Canada. Thank you, Lynn. So exciting. And that we're going to really foster this collaboration, have these shared experiences, and inspire deep learning all around the spirals of inquiry.
And as Lauren had shared, the spirals of inquiry from Judy and Linda are really kind of the center of our work. And it has been the center of our work since the time that we started teaching together. And it transformed from what we're focusing on for learners to how we're focusing on in our own learning. And so we're just curious about how it kind of came to be was our curiosity around how do we connect with one another and how do we support each other in our growing and learning, and so this continues to ground our work.
Right. And sort of the why about relationships, because we all know how crucial it is for many different reasons, and that it contributes to our overall well-being, our success of our students, and for ourselves and the other adults in the classroom. The other reasons about why we thought it was so important to focus on relationships, that the positive learning environment, not only that it contributes to the safe and welcoming atmosphere, but how we notice that students are more likely to thrive in an environment where they feel supported and valued. The emotional safety piece, that they're establishing strong relationships, they feel secure and connected. The trust and respect, that we're building relationships and it fosters trust and respect between teachers and students and between the students themselves. I'm just doing a quick little presentation. Sorry, Sang. Okay. That there were enhanced academic success. So in terms of our motivation and engagement is a bit deeper. Again, it's sort of igniting this passion for learning and curiosity. And then the social emotional development. So we're modeling social skills and we're supporting well-being.
And today, in thinking about relationships within our community, within our learning communities, and also with the land, we're so excited to have two friends join us. We have Lynn, who is a primary teacher, kindergarten teacher from the Northwest Territories. She was actually teaching in Richmond for the past few years, and this year she's teaching in the Northwest Territories for a year. We're excited to hear her story. And then we also have Ashley, who is joining us as grade 5 teacher from Penticton. And so we'll let them introduce themselves. Hello. Just let me know when to move on to the next slide.
Sure. You can move on to the next slide right now, actually. So hi, everyone. My name is Lynn, as April mentioned, and I'm going to be presenting on the topic of relationship with land. So before I begin, I just want to respectfully acknowledge that I live and work on Chief Dry Geese territory in the Acacia region, which is also known as the traditional territory of the Yellowknife Dene First Nation. So as April mentioned, just a little bit of context for you, I had previously been working in Richmond School District, SD38, along with April, and as well as some other amazing educators who were on this call. And it really helped further my understanding of what outdoor education can look like and relationship with land. And so in September, when I moved up to Yellowknife, I didn't really know many people, and I was feeling really overwhelmed with that, but also just the change of districts and schools, and also just being somewhere with a completely different landscape. And so now living somewhere where there's 7 months of snow and we're not dealing with rain and puddles and outdoor exploration with the evergreen trees that look just completely different. And so that was just a little overwhelming, but I was really lucky to, since September, be given lots of opportunities to build my relationship with the land, and build those community connections, and as well have a curriculum that really supports on the land learning. So what that looks like is we in the Northwest Territories have a curriculum called the Dene Cadet curriculum. And what it is a curriculum that was based on wisdom and knowledge that was shared with elders who really presented their knowledge and their skill sets and their attitudes towards what learning should look like. And so it's really, really powerful just in the sense that it believes that as individuals and as people, we must be capable in order to survive. And so survival meaning they saw our children and view children as the pathway into the future. So hoping that if our children are given Dene perspectives, then this will help guide them in establishing good relationships with the land, the spiritual world, other people, and themselves. We will all be closer to survival. So with that, it's relationships with land that also help to promote sustainability and appreciation for where we learn and where we work. So that is something that in the Northwest Territories, every school is mandated to follow this curriculum alongside some of the other academics that curricular requirements. And so I'm teaching grade 1 this year, and we, for instance, follow a specific Dene Cadet curriculum that's specific to grade 1. So, for instance, in that, there's study of ptarmigans or local birds, and there's the study of rabbits, and it really enables us to do a deep dive into how culturally how some of these animals and how some of these plants were used in the past traditionally. So what does this look like in practice? Well, like I mentioned, I've been really fortunate to have a lot of community connections, and our school has really, really, really strong relationships with community members to really ensure that Indigenous education values and beliefs have space in our school setting and in the development of our students. So an example of this is back in the fall, we had a local fisherman come in with some whitefish, which is a really common fish caught in the lakes up here. And he showed us how to prepare the fish in order to get the meat. And then with the fish meat, we then made stew. And another teacher at the school had the idea of collecting the fish scales because they would be a great art project. So in that first picture, you can see that some of my students using spoons to collect all the fish scales. And then we dried them out on big paper towels and used red food dye to dye them, and then glued them onto some felt to make poppies around the Remembrance Day ceremony. So just a really kind of neat project that I thought really encompassed also just the sustainability aspect and really taking all elements of the fish or of the animal. So that was really, really neat. In addition to the fish scale poppies, we also have had a lot of learning about rabbit or ga in Clichon, which is the local language. And again, we've had a Donovan come in who's an Indigenous trapper, and he brought in some rabbits that he trapped using a snare. And in the first two photos, you can see the students are learning how to prepare rabbit meat. And again, taking that meat and then using it to make a stew, which we all enjoy together. We're really fortunate to have a canvas wall tent on the school grounds. Temperatures are really, really cold here. It's really often very cold. And so a lot of these learning opportunities happen outside in the canvas wall tent, which is just a really great space to welcome in community members. And as you can see in those first two photos, the kids are just so enthusiastic. They love, love, love when Donovan comes in or other community members, and they're so enthusiastic and they have so many questions. And it's a really great way to further our inquiry and our learning about these animals. In addition to that, I'll just get you to go back, April. The last picture there is a picture that was taken last week. We had another community member come in and teach us how to set a rabbit snare, which was really neat. He showed us this type of wire that you have to use, the specific branches, talked about his stories about going out into the bush and with his dad and his grandpa and setting rabbit snares and what that looked like. And so it was just a really neat opportunity for, once again, kind of furthering that idea of children being very capable and really connecting back to that Dene Kare curriculum that we have in place here. And then in addition to the rabbit preparation, we also have had the opportunity to explore foxes or grouse, sorry. This was part of our learning around some of the local birds, and once again, getting to enjoy and eat the grouse was really, really special. And so on this particular day, we all took part in plucking the grouse. The students did, and then in the top photo there, there was a way that you can easily get the meat of the bird. And so we did that as a class. And then in addition, we looked at their diet and opened up their stomach and got to see what was inside. And so it was a really neat way to really get a hands-on way to look at their diet and to see all the parts of the birds, I guess you could say. There were, again, the kids just were so enthusiastic about that. And many of them had already had experience plucking birds or preparing the meat at home, which was really neat for them to bring those connections into the classroom. And in addition to that, we had the opportunity to have Wolverine and Fox come into the school. And again, and local Indigenous trapper came and showed us kind of the process of what he does to prepare the fur and to showed us all the different parts of the body. And it was just a really amazing way for students to get close and personal to some of these animals that they live amongst here in the north. And then as we progress, and I guess in the next little bit, we are, besides the animals and the meat preparation, we're really thinking about how, or I'm thinking at least about how we can continue to make and have our students be capable individuals and grow that relationship to the land. And so one thing that we're doing is, April, if you just want to go to the next slide there, is one of the means, say, for survival is starting a fire and keeping warm. And so our next steps, or my next goal, is to have the students start fires on their own, and that includes chopping wood. And so we've created videos for the kids to watch prior to us going outside, where we show them how to properly use an axe and how to chop wood and done in a safe way, and learning about our blood bubble. So where can the tool go that won't be harmful to other kids in our classroom community, and just really help promote that sense of independence, but also being capable individuals who can continue to live and survive on the land. And so that's kind of the next project for a couple of us at our school, is just to kind of create an outdoor learning folder and a series of resources where students can continue to learn some new skills like chopping wood. And in addition, another photo I have there is we're hoping to have students create fire starters using recycled materials such as lint and aid cartons, and again have them think about how can they start fires using things that already are around us. And so that's kind of our next steps. Unfortunately, it is often very cold, and so we can't spend a lot of time outside for prolonged periods of time, just with the risk of frostbite and everything else. So these are kind of some of the other approaches to outdoor learning, and again, building that relationship to land. And so I guess, yeah, moving forward for all of you, maybe I don't suggest that you go set a rabbit snare or anything like that in Richmond, or try to trap a wolverine, but maybe you can continue to think about how can you integrate Indigenous perspectives and way of knowing into your outdoor education and into your school setting. So that's everything I had to share on my end here. Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks, Lynn. I know we learned a lot, and I think Lauren will do some questions at the end. Is that okay? Yeah, we'll go on to Ashley's, and then we'll have time for some questions and conversation.
Hello, everybody. I'm super excited to join. Oh, sorry, April, would you mind just going back one slide? I'm actually going to start off by introducing myself in Tsilhqot'in, which is the local language connected to the territory in which I live, learn, work, and play in. And then I'll share my land acknowledgement. Why Haskahal y Squeeze Ashley Aoki, Kinmut Summerland, BC. And in Tsilhqot'in, I just said, hello and good day. My name is Ashley Aoki, and I live in Summerland, BC. I am the daughter of David and Patty Aoki, the sister to Amanda Aoki, and I'm engaged to Steve Collier. My ancestry descends back to Japan and Germany, and I'm a settler and a guest on Syilx territory. And this is the space that was inhabited and has been inhabited by the Penticton Indian band since time immemorial. And I just think about my responsibility, and also what it is for me as both an educator and a citizen on this land to deepen my own relationship to land in a respectful, responsible way, and continue moving myself and my learners towards truth and reconciliation. One thing that has happened within the last little while is I have been taking my students out on the land, and I'm connecting to you, Lynn, respectfully indigenizing the way that I teach and decolonizing. So the Syilx people in this territory collaborated with some scientists and shared this beautiful ethnobotany guide, which is like 100 pages of pure gold, and how they have resourcefully, respectfully, responsibly used so many of the materials here on Syilx territory. And it's been neat because I've been with my fiance going, oh my gosh, honey, this is sage. And do you know what? You had to smell it. And did you know that they use this for like braiding rope? And so it's been such a joyous experience for me as a partner, but also with students, and just to really celebrate and amplify Indigenous voices. So yeah, yeah, I can go on to the next slide now. I am really excited to join you today, and I was so grateful to be asked about sharing about relationships because that's really so much of my love and joy as an elementary educator. Like April mentioned, I do teach grade 5, and this is something I hoped to share with you is kind of like what I do long term and then what I do day to day to help set up my students and I for success within the classroom. Maybe some of the things will go, oh, I love that. I already do it. Affirmation. Maybe it's something that you would like to try, or maybe you love it but want to leave it and return to it later on. In the book Student Diversity by Leighton Schnellert, Faye Brownlee, and I can't remember the other lady's name, Tyacke, I know is the last name. They shared this beautiful starter activity with students, and it's called the learner profile. And I kind of beautified it because I said to somebody I'd either be an interior designer or an educator. So I really enjoy pretty things. But what I did at the very beginning of the school year is I asked my students a wide variety of questions. And what this gave me to, I provided my own example, but it gave me access to the ways that I could support learners in a variety of ways. What I found particularly helpful is that one of the questions was the easiest way for me to show what I know is. And so as my students, I have them all over the classroom. My students can see the ways that they learn being reflected back to them, but also have access into the fact that other learners might not necessarily learn in the same way that I do, or that, our desk partner does. The other thing that this has gifted our students, because this is the very first year that I've done it in this way, is it's given us bridges of connection. So students are asking one another questions. Oh, I didn't know that you really love this thing. So I will see students as we transition to things, head out, they'll pause at that wall and look at different students' learner profile to get a little insight into who those people are. I think what this really does is it humanizes each of us. So I love having it on the walls for us to look at. I love learning a little bit more. And then I love using this as a tool to also support my learners in their learning and honoring what they need. Would you mind going to the next slide, please? The other thing that I had done at the very beginning of the school year, actually in August, is read Ensouling Our Schools. This is a book that I have found fundamentally important in shifting the way that I see education, and that I feel myself as more of a guide and support rather than the sage on the stage. But more than anything, it's really helped me to validate the way in which I educate, which is really from the belief of like building those foundational roots of relationship and honoring all 4 aspects of the medicine wheel: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, as a way to really amplify and support learners. So at the very beginning of the school year, one of the other things that my students did a multiple intelligence survey to get to know who they are as learners. Yesterday, we just had student-led conferences, and on my wall, there's the big wheel of the variety of ways in which we learn and demonstrate our learning best. And my students went up and were able to explain to their families, I am a interpersonal, like that's one of my strengths, interpersonal relationships, or I am a naturalist, so I really enjoy taking care of plants and animals. And they were able to describe that to each other. But then what we also did at the beginning of the school year is had this beautiful window of what kind of jobs could that create for us. And so it was really amazing too. Yesterday, it was so sweet. On Monday, one of my students has been listening to all the different strengths that are in each of our class, and she was the leader switcher for the week. So every week we have different leaders in our class who have different roles. Some might call it jobs, and she matched the students' strengths in the multiple intelligence to their leader role. And so one of my students her strength was taking care of plants. She loves taking care of plants and animals. So she became the garden keeper, because I have plants all around my classroom. And she later said to me, and this is a student who's very vulnerable, I looked at the multiple intelligence, I used their strengths and tried to incorporate it and make sure that their leader role matched what their strengths are. So anyways, another beautiful bridge to understanding learners a little bit better. One of the things that I have loved is a book called Maslow Before Blooms. It's written by Dr. Perlman, and he talks about how students, and this might be super familiar to everyone on the call, but students can't learn until students feel those things within the Maslow's for Bloom: psychological safety, psychological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. I often think about the ways that we enter into a space and that regulated learners are able to do the things on the right-hand side, which is the Bloom's taxonomy. I think about the ways that I have done that in order to support learners. And one of the things that I found fundamentally important is being okay with creating supports, like Dr. Shelley Moore would say, like supports that support all learners, but that have one child in mind. So last year I had a very, very vulnerable student, probably one of the most vulnerable. And I had a cool corner system that was put in place so that they could kind of gravitate towards that space when they needed that space to reset, but then were able to come back into learning. It was set up for him, but it ended up benefiting my whole entire class. So I think about the Maslow's Before Blooms a lot when I think about, how can I support regulation in learners? These are also like some more practical things when I think about Maslow's Before Blooms, but Good Inside by Dr. Becky Kennedy. And if you haven't had the opportunity to read any of Jodi Carrington's work, she is such a beautiful read, because she's so honest and provides very practical ways that people can reconnect in a very disconnected world. This book, Feeling Seems Beautiful. Some of the things that I talk a lot about is mindful breathing practices and regulation practices in my classroom. We do this 2 times per day, right after recess and right after lunchtime. And I actually have students now leading that. So I have really stepped away from it, and it's been amazing to watch students regulate, co-regulate, and then for me to be able to be freed up so that I can support the regulation within the space. I also fundamentally believe that restorative and reparative conversations have been a huge support in my classroom space. And I think I was doing this somewhat intuitively, but it wasn't articulated until last year, that regulated adults also support students to resolve conflicts in a really thoughtful way. I talk a lot about, being able to have one-on-one conversations are a lot different than kind of targeting my whole entire class. So if I know someone needs that extra support, pulling them off to the side and being able to have those conversations has been really helpful. And being able to ensure that I also am regulated too before entering into those conversations, because it's easy to come from, a place of worry, upset. So checking in with my own self. We engage in weekly talking circles as well. And I follow the Sikh people protocols that are local to the area in which I live, learn, and play. And then I also think about the hard work that educators are doing every single day. And we right now are in a conversation around anti-racism in education. And I think a lot about how we have those really intense conversations, but they rest upon the joy that we can go to the depths and the hard, but we can go based on, that really solid foundation of joy and hope and connectivity. So my students every week do what's called good news, and they have, this time to share good news about their life, about anything. At the end of every single day, I try to do what's called an AA, acknowledge, apologize, aha. And we stand in circle and we can share those things. And that comes back also to restoring and repairing. I had one student last year that got into lots of conflicts at lunchtime and recess time. And this would be the place at the end of the day where he would apologize to other members within our community. And it became a really healthy way for us to end the day. The other thing is that like I mentioned last year, I had probably one of the most vulnerable learners in my school, in my class, and one of the most vulnerable learners I've taught. And I think about the way that I invited him back into the space. Sometimes educators can be really hesitant to have those ones that are very vulnerable back in the place because there's a level of unpredictability. But one of the things that I really did is ensure that I was setting the tone for him to come back in a really positive way, but also that I was excited for him to come back, that I wanted him in this space. I want you here. I'm excited to have you back. And I also am in charge of this place. So that was really important for us as well. The last thing that I'll touch on, and I feel I may have gone over time, I haven't even been looking at the time, sorry, is the way that I can continue celebrating, honoring, and amplifying diverse personal identities within the classroom space. And so I have a wide range of, this is probably the most culturally rich school that I've taught in. We are pretty homogenous in the fact that we have a lot of white folks that live in my community here. But one of the things that I do to create access is I find that Google Translate has come such a long ways and send weekly updates in a wide variety of languages. So this is in Punjabi. We send it in English, French, Hungarian, and that has really created access for learners who have said, my family has never been able to read, for example, my learning update or my report card or the weekly updates or the newsletters. And now they have access to those texts and are deeply invested in their children's learning because they can read it and aren't relying on their child to do the translating when they get home. The other thing that I do, as I mentioned, I'm a woman of mixed ancestry as well. So I really think about the way that I can uphold a diverse range of identities culturally. Last year, one of the things that I did a huge cultural identity and name identity project. And on our wall, there's this beautiful open-ended map that looks just like this on the right-hand side, and every student explores their cultural identity and does a beautiful writing piece. And I try as much as possible to make all the research online because I really want to ensure that students who come from homes like a foster care system, for example, don't have access to that information, can find out a lot of that information by searching online, by using tools like the last name. Where does your last name come from? Let's Google it. So I try to make things Googleable, and then they learn about themselves and who they are connected to their own cultural identity. Another layer you could put in is also gender identity too, depending on the grade or age range. And then last year, what we did is a huge cultural celebration. So students brought in their foods from a variety of cultural backgrounds. And we had a big celebration together and ate food, and it was beautiful in so many ways. But then to end it all off, we had a huge cultural cookbook that ended up going home. So everyone shared their recipes. I made a cultural cookbook, and then it went home. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the end of that. Thanks for having me.
Wow, Ashley, unbelievable. And Lynn, incredible. So I have a million notes that I have taken alongside a bunch of questions. So I think we're going to end the recording so that we feel